Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible to you all? Hello. Okay, fine. So, in our last lecture, I think you have already studied link state protocols, uh, uh, isn't it? How to find out, and that is also a global routing algorithm. And we have in the last lecture you might have studied that. So we'll continue further with the next routing protocol. Actually, we are dealing with now here the hierarchical routing algorithm. Okay, so we'll see what is this hierarchical routing algorithm. First of all, as we have studied that if the number of routers are if the network is too big, then the number of routers would also be the routing table would also be very large. Do you agree to this, all of you? Okay, so in such case, the as you know that in the link state routing protocol they have to send their own link state packet, they have to flood it. So say suppose if the number of routers are too long, too it is too big, then the size of the table would be very large, and the bandwidth required to transmit all these packets would be very large. Okay, and apart from that, the database what is required to store this routing information would also be very large. Fine. So to overcome these problems, the link state routing algorithm came into picture. We'll see how it works. Hope the screen is visible to you all. Hello, screen is visible to you all. Okay. So here, in case of a hierarchical routing algorithm, in this particular example, you can see that the number of routers, like they can be combined together and they forms a region. So, for example, you can see that there are 5 different regions, and there are number of routers in each of this region. So, region 1 contains these routers like 1A, 1B, 1C, and so on. So, 5 different regions are there. If a simple routing table is maintained, then you can see that uh, for this routing table for this router 1A here, this is the number of routers what we can have, and how this 1A router can reach to other routers. So that can be shown by using this routing table. Followed. So you can see that here still we are having very few routers, and you can see the size of the routing table. Imagine the thousands of routers are present, and you can imagine the size of the routing table. Okay, so to overcome this problem, these routers can be grouped together, okay, or they can be made into regions. So every router here are they know the routing information of the other routers within their region. Are you getting this? So 1A knows how to route to 1B, how it can route to 1C. The routing information is known by all these routers within their own region, but they are not aware about how to route the packets, or they are not aware about the topology or how the routers in other region are interconnected to each other. Fine. So but from, say suppose this 1A wants to send some packet to say 2B, but it knows that to reach 2B, which is in the region 2, it can go via 1B. So for example, you can see that this is the hierarchical table what we can see. So 1A knows the how to reach to 1B, 1C explicitly within its own region, but to other regions it doesn't know anything about the topology or about the routers which are connected, how they are connected to each other, it is not known. So but it knows how to reach to region 2, how it can reach to region 3, 4, 5, etc. It is known. Okay, so what it finds is to reach region 2, it has to go via 1B. So you can see that router A, 1A, if it wants to send some packet to some router which is in the second region, so it knows that the region 2 can be reached via 1B, and to reach to region 2 it takes two hops, one hop from 1A to 1B and the other hop from 1B to 2A. Okay. Similarly, it can reach to region 3 by via 1C, and the number of hops is 3. Okay. So sorry, 2, and so on. Hope this is clear. So 1A can reach to region 5 via 1 using 1C, and the number of hops to region 5 will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the how it can reach to region 5. But within this region, only these routers of this region would know how to route to any other routers within this particular region. Is this thing clear, everyone? Okay. So this is about the hierarchical routing. Now, in case if the number of regions are still more, okay, so it can be further grouped into. In case if the regions are still larger, I mean, if there are more number of regions, then even this table would also be the size of this table would also be increased. So several regions can be combined together, and that is known as a cluster. Are you getting this? One more level of hierarchy would be there. If the number of regions are too large, then the regions can be grouped together, which is known as a cluster. Then clusters can, if still the clusters are too large, then it can be grouped together to form the zones. And zones can be further grouped together to form the groups and so on. Okay, so these are the level of hierarchy. Okay, so every host would have the idea about the routing within their own region, but they don't have the idea about the routing to the packets to the other region. But the problem with this, no doubt the space, the table space would be reduced by using this hierarchical routing. But the problem here is, say suppose if it wants to route to certain packet to 5C, it has to send some packet to 5C. So in that case, even if it passes through this region 2, it would be more shorter than it is passing through region 3, because you know that region 5 can be reached via 1C. So via 1C it is reaching to this region 5. Okay, still even if it takes longer path, but due to this since the space is saved, this type of hierarchical routing is achieved. Okay, and as I told, if we group number of regions, so it is known as a cluster, and clusters can be grouped together, which is known as zones. Zones can be grouped together, which is known as a groups. Now in general, the number of what should be the ideal number of levels or hierarchy in this hierarchy? How many should be the number of levels? So if there are n routers in a subnet, then natural log of n, these many number of levels should be, hierarchical levels should be there for this routers. And the table space which is used by this would be E into natural log of n. This is the number of, it is a table space which is occupied by each of the router for natural log of n number of levels. Okay, these are the number of levels in the hierarchy, and this is the amount of table space. Fine. So one such example is given. Say suppose if there are 720 routers. Okay. Now this 720 routers can be partitioned into 24 regions, and out of this, each region will have 30 routers. Okay. Now what can be the size of the table? Are you getting my point? If there are 720 routers, okay, they can be divided into 24 regions, and each region would have 30 routers. So total number of 720 routers are there. So if they don't use hierarchical routing algorithm, then what happens? The size of the table would be, there should be 720 entries. Are you getting this? Whereas if it uses this 24 uh, I mean 24 groups or 24 regions, and 30 in each region there are 30 routers. So what should be the size of the table now? For 30 routers, there should be 30 entries plus uh, it should have the idea of the other 23 regions. So 30 plus 23 is 53. So these many entries would be there in case of this given specification. Whereas if say suppose if it is, we are using a 3 level hierarchy in which it has 8 clusters, then 9 regions, and in each region there are 10 routers. So what should be the size of the table now? So 10 routers would have 10 entries, then 8 entries for the other regions, then 7 entries for the other clusters. So in total amount, the size of the table would be 10 plus 8, 18 plus 7 is 25. So 25 entries would be there into this routing table. Hope everyone is clear with this. Hello. Any doubts in this? Okay. So this is about the hierarchical routing. The next topic is broadcast routing. What do you mean by broadcasting? What do you mean by broadcast routing? Broadcast, okay. Sender is one, and the receiver can be many, or yes, one sender would be there, and the recipients of that packets would be all of them. All rest of the rest of the routers or rest of the hosts are all the recipients of that broadcast message or broadcast packet. Fine. So usually it is used in news application. So some news channel would be sending some periodic news to the. It is broadcasted to the host, or it can be due to the or it this it can be used by some say weather forecasting, etc. So all such thing they are using this broadcast routing. So there are a number of ways to route for this broadcast routing. The very first one is a simple one, that the sender would send uh, to each of the recipient individually. But as you know that it would it is a just wastage of the bandwidth, because there might be even number of hosts which are on the same line. Then too it would provide the address of each of them, and it is individually sending the packet. So that is one way of broadcasting, but it is the waste of bandwidth, wastage of all the resources, etc. The other way of broadcasting is the flooding. So you all are aware, because flooding means what? All the packet which is incoming to a router, it would be forwarded to to all the outgoing links. Okay, so that is nothing but the flooding, and we know about the selective flooding. Fine. So what happens here to overcome the number of packets which are just moving within the network? Okay, so what we can have, we can use a selective flooding. That means it can flood only in a particular direction wherever the hosts are present. So that is one way of achieving the broadcast routing. The other way of broadcasting is multi-destination routing, in which multi-destination routing refers to, say suppose sender is there, source is there, okay, and say suppose the source is host A. So it will send a packet with this is a packet, and in this all the destination addresses are provided, and that packet might be sent to a certain router. Okay, and this router may have There might be other router also which might be connected, and for this, say suppose the host B is connected, host C is connected, host D is connected, and host E is also connected to this router. Okay, now what happens when the packet is sent by host A to this router? What it will do, router R1 would receive that packet, even R2 would also receive this packet. So what it will do, it will create, or it will make a new packet with the packet with the destination address of only B as well as C. Similarly, R2 would once again it creates a packet with destination only with D as well as E. Are you getting this? So in multi-destination routing, the router, it will find that along this outgoing link, who are the destinations which are connected to it. Only those addresses are provided at this outgoing link, and so by doing so, the duplicate packets would not be can be reduced, as we have in the case of flooding. Okay, this is one more way for routing or broadcasting this, which is known as a multi-destination routing. Okay, so here, say suppose here there are some more hosts, then accordingly it will send only to that particular host, provided with the packet it will provide only the destination of that destination address of that particular host. So this is nothing but the multi-destination routing. Then comes one more type of broadcasting, which is known as a spanning tree based broadcasting. What do you mean by spanning tree? So we have studied about the spanning tree. Okay, so whenever, so for example, in case of spanning tree based, so here say suppose this is a spanning tree of a given network. So in case of spanning tree based broadcasting, every host would have the complete picture of the spanning tree. So whenever a packet reaches to a particular router, say suppose I is my uh, sender, okay, and since it wants to broadcast, it would broadcast to all its outgoing link. Fine. So when the packet is reached to F, it will find that whether it is a part of that spanning tree, and it should have, all these hosts should have the complete picture of the spanning tree of this host I or router I. Okay, so when that packet is reaches to this F, it finds that whether the link A as well as D is a part of the spanning tree. If it is so, it will forward the packet to these two links. Again, when that packet reaches to A, it finds whether the outgoing link E is a part of a spanning tree. If it is so, it will further forward this packet to E. Now, E, even actually this link is there. E will check whether this link is a part of the spanning tree. Since it is not there, it would not forward it further. Are you getting this? Similarly, the same thing holds good. Here D as well as G is also connected. Now, as hello. So when the packet reaches to D, it will find which are the links which are a part of the spanning tree. So it finds that C is a part, this DC is a part of the spanning tree. So the packet would be forwarded here, but it would not be forwarded to this particular link. Okay. So like this, all these nodes would receive this packets, and hence it would be the packets are broadcasted. But the thing is that all of them should have the knowledge of the spanning tree of this router I. Is this thing clear, everyone? Hello. Then what is good? Okay, so this is also a kind of broadcast, but by using the spanning tree, everyone should have the knowledge about the spanning tree of all the rest of the routers. Okay, say suppose if now the source is M, then a spanning tree for M which is constructed, that knowledge should be there for to all the routers which are in the subnet. Fine. So this is known as a sync tree or the spanning tree. It's one and say. The third way, one more way of broadcasting is known as a reverse path forwarding. So in case of spanning tree, what we have learned that if everyone should know the spanning tree of others. Okay, but in case if the spanning tree is not known, then uh, we can use the other way, which is known as a reverse path forwarding. In case of reverse path forwarding, whenever a packet is reached to the neighbor of this I, that is F, J, N as well as H. These are its neighbors. So what they'll do when the packet is received by these nodes, it will check into its table whether to if any packet is received by this node, and if the destination is I, whether it uses the same path to send that particular packet. If it is yes, it means that it has already followed the shortest path. Are you getting me? Say suppose some packet P1 is received by N through I. Okay, I has sent a packet P1 to N. Now, by looking at the routing table of N, it will check if some packet P2 arrives to N, and if the destination is I, whether it uses this path itself. If it is so, by looking at this table, it will come to know whether if it wants to uh, if the destination is I, whether it uses this link to transmit the packet. If it is yes, it implies that it is a shortest path. Okay, so what it will do? It will forward that packet to further to M as well as O. You can see that N is connected to M as well as O. Okay, whereas in the same way, J would also receive, and if it finds that it is the shortest path, then it will forward it to G as well as O. Similarly, H would forward it to E as well as K, and F would be forwarding to A as well as D. Okay. Now, once H receives this packet from I, now it will check whether it would forward it to E as well as K. You can see that it has already forwarded to E as well as K. Now, when E receives that packet, it will check whether if a message, if a packet has to be forwarded to I, whether it uses this link. If it is yes, then it would forward it to A. But if it is no, I mean, if it does not forward the packet through this line, then it would not forward it further to A. Are you getting my point? Hello. Shall I repeat this thing? Hello. Okay. About superordinate and subordinate models. Then we talked about visibility. Then we talked about control. So what it says is, from the router I, the packet would be sent to all the outgoing links which are connected to it. So F, H, J as well as N are the outgoing links. Now, when a packet is received by this link, it will check whether the packet which through which it has received, if it needs to transmit some packet to node I, whether it uses the same path, whether it is the shortest path. If it is yes, it implies that the packet has already traveled the shortest path. Do you agree to this? So routing table would be there. Say host I, and it has host I can be reached through N in a hop 1. So this is the shortest path now. Now, similarly, H would also receive, and it would, by looking at the routing table, it would come to know that it can reach to I using this shortest path. Now, H would, if it is so, it would forward that particular packet to the other links, say E as well as K are the two links which are connected to H. Right? Now, when E receives this packet, whose source is I, it will check whether, if say suppose if E wants to send any packet to I, whether it follows this path or some other path. If it is not this path, then it would not forward that packet further to A. Are you getting this? Because it will assume that it is not a shortest path, and hence it would not forward that packet to A. So E as well as K would not forward that packet because that is not the desired path if a packet has been forwarded to I. Followed? Similarly, followed all of you. Okay. So here the spanning tree is not required. Okay, the spanning tree in the last example, what we have discussed that the spanning tree's information is should be known by all the routers of this particular subnet. But whereas here it should know only whether this is the preferred path. If it is yes, then it has to forward it further, and if it is no, then it has to stop. It should not forward it further. So like this, it you can see that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in five hops, it would the broadcast is done in this 5 hops. Okay, hope everyone is clear. So every router within the network can get the this they'll be able to know or they'll receive this all the broadcasted message only in the 5 hops, but the number of packets would be more than that of the sync tree. So you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there are 14 packets which are forwarded, and in this 5 hops, not 14, there are 24 packets, because here also it has said, isn't it? Here, everywhere. So there are 24 packets and 5 hops it takes to broadcast a packet from the router I to rest of the routers in the network. Hope everyone is clear with this. Hello. Hello. Is this clear, everyone? Broadcast routing. Any doubts? Hope everyone is clear. I'll continue further with the next topic, that is multicast routing. So what is the difference between broadcast and multicast? What is the difference between broadcast and multicast? Am I audible? Hello. The second one is SC. Are you with me? Might be structured. Okay. Right, so we do these two activities, distinct activities. Right? So understood this broadcast routing, different ways. One way is to broadcast to each and every destination. The other way is to use flooding. One more way is to use multi-destination routing. That means a single packet would have the various addresses, and that would be forwarded based upon the outgoing link through which the destination can be reached. Then came spanning tree based broadcasting, which we have discussed with this example. Then came reverse path forwarding. So we have discussed this. And then we'll study about the multicast routing. So what I asked, what is the difference between broadcast and multicast? Any one of you? In case of broadcasting, every host within the network would get the broadcast message. Whereas in case of multicast routing, only a subset of the routers who are interested in, or who have subscribed to a particular network, so only those would get the message, whereas rest of all would not get the message. So that is nothing but the multicast. Okay, so for example, here you can see that these are the routers, right? And you can see that some of the routers are there are two groups here. Two multicast groups are there, group 1 as well as group 2. Okay, that means this router is having both the groups. Whereas this router is in group 2, this router is in group 1, whereas this router is in both group 1 as well as 2, and so on. Are you getting this? So there are two multicast groups. One is having the they have provided the number as group 1 as well as multicast group 2. Fine. So in case of multicast routing, here what we have to do. So the routers are. It is a function of the this multicast routing algorithm to manage even the group. Okay, so group management should also be done. Like say suppose already this router is having, it is a part of group 2, but say suppose some process is there, and now it has to root even the group 1 also. Okay, even it has to be a part of group 1 also. So like all these updation to add the routers into the group or to remove the routers from a group, so all these things should be managed. Okay, but at present we are only concerned with routing within the group. For this, the spanning tree of this routing has to be done. So you can see that this is the spanning tree, given spanning tree. Now, from the end of this spanning tree, okay, say suppose if we want to have a spanning tree of only group 1. So what we have to do, so this is the spanning tree. We'll start with this from group 1 we are talking. From the end of this spanning tree we'll start, and we'll check whether it is a part of group 1. Yes. If it is so, then include it into the group. Okay. Similarly, now if it is not a part of group 1, then you have to exclude it. Are you getting this? If it is not a part of group 1, then it has to be excluded. Whereas if it is a part of group 1, then it has to be included. Now, similarly, for group 2 also, here you can see that this is a spanning tree, and you have to prune. Prune means what? You have to remove those routers which are not a part of the group. Okay. So, but how to know whether it is a part of the group or whether it is not a part of the group? For that, we have to we have to prune this spanning tree which is already given here. For that, one way is to use the, we have already studied about the link state routing protocol. Okay, so the link state packets which are exchanged between the routers within the subnet, with that it also should provide the information of the group, uh, 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 information of the group that particular router belongs to. Okay, so suppose this router belongs to group 2, so when it distributes or when it floods its link state packet, it has to indicate that I am belonging to group 2. Okay, similarly all these routers should provide the information of their own group with their link state packets. This is one way. Another way, so once the spanning tree is done, then it can start pruning the spanning tree based upon the group what it belongs to. Fine. The other way, if it uses the distance vector routing, if it uses the distance vector routing, then it can use the reverse path forwarding what we have studied. Okay, so whenever a router with uh, no hosts which are interested in the group, say suppose here I am having a packet has been received here. Okay, now this router, actually it does not belong to group 2. So when a packet which is meant for group 2 is received here by this router, and there are no hosts which are connected with the group 2, it will send a packet to this router saying that don't forward me the packet with group id number 2. Okay, so now this router, if it finds that there are no routers which are, or no host or no routers which are connected to this with group number 2, it will again forward the packet to it will send a message to the router, to this router, saying that don't forward me the packet which is which belongs to group 2. Okay, so like this it prunes here also it is removed. Now again, this pack, since there are no routers or no hosts which are connected with group number 2 to this particular router, it will send a message to this particular router saying that don't again forward me any of the uh, uh, packets which belongs to group 2. Okay, so here it ends. So like this, the tree, I mean the spanning tree can be pruned by using this distance vector routing and by using the reverse path forwarding. Here it is saying that this is not meant for group 2, no hosts are connected, so you need not further provide me the packets which are meant for group 2. Okay, so like this, uh, and this spanning tree, this pruned spanning tree information should be provided for, it should be known with by all the routers. So say suppose if we are having very large networks, and if we are having a very large number of multicast groups, in that case the size of the table would also be very large. So for example, if there are n number of groups, if there are n number of groups, in our example we are having only two groups, but in case if I'm having very vast network and if there are n number of groups, and for each group if there are m number of m members are there or m number of routers are there, okay, then for each router one spanning tree would be there. Are you getting it? Every router would have, each router one spanning tree would be there, and if there are m routers and all of them should know their the spanning tree of each other, so total n number of so mn number of this routing information would be there for these groups. Okay, so the size of the table would be too large. To overcome this, core based trees are used, in which case a central router, say suppose this is my central router, it will have only one spanning tree. Okay, anyone who wants to send a multicast message, they'll send this message, the packet would be sent to the core of this spanning tree, and this core would then based upon the spanning tree, it would forward that packet to the rest of the routers into the multicast. Okay, into that multicast group. Are you getting me? In the earlier example, what we know that if there are m number of routers, then m such spanning trees would be there, and all of them should have the details of the spanning tree. So the total number of size would be m into n. Okay, the table size would be very large. To overcome this, a core-based tree is used, in which any one of the central core is used, and that for each of this group. So this is for group 2. You can use any other. This can be the central core based tree for group number 1. Okay. So only these two routers would have the information of the spanning tree. Okay, and hence you can see that the table would be only one, and that would be for this particular router. And any other routers who wants to send the message, multicast message, they for group 2 or multicast message for group 2, so it would send only to this particular router, it would not and then this core would forward it to the other routers into that multicast group. Is this thing clear? Hello, any doubts in this? If you don't understand, let me know, I'll explain it, I don't mind. Hello. Shall I continue with the next topic? See, if you have any doubts, let me know. If you don't have any doubts, then to let me know so that I'll continue with the next topic. Are you with me? Hello. How about this? Are you there, all of you? Or okay, shall I continue with the next topic then? Fine. So the next topic is congestion. What do you mean by congestion? Uh, uh, Traffic. I mean, if heavy traffic, you can say. Okay. Congestion refers to if there are too many packets. So you can see here this part of the graph, the packets. Uh, uh, Congestion doesn't mean that it is an available path present or not. If congestion refers to congestion refers to if the packets are too many, and if the network doesn't I mean, the performance of the network degrades because the packets are not delivered to the host reliably, or some of the packets might be lost, or the packets may not be reached to the host, etc., or the packets may time out and they'll not reach to the host. So there are various factors for this congestion. So they can handle when packets carry more data, then they can have packet size is fixed. Anj. Usually the packet size would be fixed. Okay. Uh, Now the number of packets may vary. Are you getting this? Packet size would be fixed, but the number of packets all in the network may vary. Right? If the count of that packets are too, if they are too much, then the packets, then the network can handle it. So then a congestion may occur. Fine. So you can see that up to some extent, up to some limit, the packets which are sent would be same as that of the packets which are delivered. Are you getting this? Okay. So up to some extent, uh, all the packets would be delivered without any problem. But as the packet sent increases, you can see that as the number of count packets onto the network increases, so actually what we are desired that all the packets should be delivered without any problem. This is the maximum carrying capacity and all of them should be delivered. But what we find, as the number of packets increases, it would not move. Actually the curve is something like this, the desirable curve, but here you can see that it is degraded here, and all most of the packets would be none of most of the packets would be lost. You can see that the packet delivered are, it is this curve goes down. Now can you tell me what can be the reason? What are the factors on which the congestion depends? Just a guess. Say suppose we are moving to some highway, okay, and if there is a congestion, then what would you suggest? The road size should be wider. I mean, there should be more number of lanes. Okay, so in short, the bandwidth should be increased. Do you agree to this? Then, any other reason? Say, suppose already the traffic is more and some more vehicles are still on the way. I mean, they have poured, then what happens? They'll crash and they'll collide with one another and so on, isn't it? So you can see that if you still increase the size of number of packets, the congestion would still grow up. Okay. The other reason for the congestion can be it might be possible that the sender rate of transmission is more than that of the receiver. Okay, it would go on pouring the packets onto the network, but the receiver is not capable of processing those packets and send the acknowledgement within the time. So then too, the congestion would occur, or even the not the receiver, even the routers in between. Okay, they'll not send or if they are not I mean, they are slower, then to the queue within the router would build up. Okay, say suppose if the routers are slower, the number of packets which are coming to these routers, it would be increased and they will be stored into a buffer. Okay, and then the router would send the packet at the outgoing link. Now in case if the buffer size is more, if I increase the buffer size, whether the congestion can be reduced. Are you getting me? Say suppose this is my router R1 and there are number of incoming links and all of them are sending the packets and there is one outgoing link. So is there a possibility of congestion here also? If the number of inputs are more and output is less. One way what I can do, I can store all these packets which are coming to this router one into a buffer, and then I will send it to the outgoing link. Can we do so? But what if, say, suppose the router has increased the buffer size? Now, can I reduce? Can the congestion can be overcome? Hello. If we increase the buffer size, all the packets would not be dropped or it would not be lost, and then it would be forwarded to the outgoing link. So, can we reduce the congestion? Yes or no? No. Okay. So what happens? The packet which the packets would queue up, and when the packet which is here, when its turn comes here, when it would be in the front of this queue, what happens? It would time out. If it times out, what happens? That packet will be dropped from this buffer or from the network. And what happens when it times out? The sender, what it will do? The sender has already sent a message. Since it has not received any acknowledgement from the receiver, what it will do? It will time out that packet and it will resend that packet again to this router or to the receiver. Are you getting my point? So what happens? It would go on pouring this uh, the packets onto the network, and even if I build the, if even if we increase the buffer size, till that packets turn would come, it may time out and new packets would arrive onto the network, and still it increases the congestion. Hope you are getting my point. Okay, more number of packets are poured into the network and it would still increase the congestion instead of overcoming that. Okay, so that is one more reason of congestion. The other reason can be, as I said, the network would time out. Sorry, the packets would time out and more packets would be arriving. So you can see here, more packets are even if I'm increasing this packet, now what happens, the due to the timeout, more number of packets would be there into the network, and it would still increase this congestion, and the overall performance of the network would be reduced. Okay, and you can see that the performance here, the packets are not delivered efficiently. Fine. The other reason is we have discussed about the bandwidth, we have discussed about the say suppose if we increase the speed or the CPU speed can be increased, but if the bandwidth is kept low, is it possible? If the bandwidth is less and the CPU speed is more, whether the congestion can be reduced? No. So there should be a proper balance for all of that. The buffer space, the bandwidth of the network, then the speed of the CPU, etc. All of them should be balanced so that proper, the congestion can be avoided. Follow? Now, there is a difference between flow control and congestion. What do you mean by flow control and congestion? Flow control refers to, it only deals with the sender as well as the receiver. Say suppose the fast sender is sending a message to the slow receiver. Okay, then receiver has to uh, uh, tell the sender to slow down. Okay, so like or we are on here in flow control, we are only concerned with sender as well as the receiver. Okay, whereas in case of congestion, it deals with the entire subnet. It doesn't mean, it doesn't here it doesn't consider only between the sender and receiver, but in case of congestion, the congestion control should be done across the entire subnet. On it is not necessary that it is only for source as well as the destination. In between the network for the other source and destination, all through the entire subnet, the control of this the resources, all of them should be done, and that is nothing but the congestion control. Okay, now this, there are two types of congestion control. One of them is known as the open loop policies, and the other one is the closed loop policies. Okay, in case of open loop policy, it is an attempt to solve the problem before actually it occurs. Okay, so it has to implement some good design should be done before actual problem occurs. Okay, by using some good design, it may reserve some bandwidth properly, or it may use some routing protocols can be used in such a way that uh, as far as possible the congestion would not occur at all in the first place. Whereas in closed loop policy, what happens, as and when congestion occurs, some measures should be taken. Okay, so some feedback will be provided, and based upon that, the parameters of the network, etc., would be adjusted. Okay, for that, there are three approaches. The very first approach, it has to monitor the system. Okay, and for that it has to detect when the congestion would occur and at what place the congestion has occurred. Say suppose from this particular path, if a congestion has occurred, then it has to dynamically change the routing, the route, so that it can use some alternate path so that the congestion can be avoided. Are you getting me? If this path is congested, then it can use some alternate path if it is available, so that it can overcome this congestion. Then pass the information to where action can be taken. Now, if a congestion has occurred at this place, it has to pass this information to other routers saying that this path is congested, and no, don't forward the packets to through this particular path, but use some alternate path. Okay, so pass this information to where the action can be taken, and say suppose if the routers, huh, open loop policy means what? It is something like prevention. Prevention means what? It will use some good design so that the congestion would not occur at all. Are you getting me? Whereas closed loop policy means what? There are certain policies in which when a congestion occurs due to some feed, by looking at this feedback, okay, it would come to know that a congestion has occurred, and it will take some measures to overcome this congestion. Hope this is clear, Priya. Fine. In open loop, the parameters are decided in such a way that the congestion would not occur. Follow? Okay. So in open loop, it makes sure that the congestion would not occur at all. Okay. So when the system has started, or when the system is running, it's at that time also only all the decisions are done. Whereas in the closed loop type of policies, while this when the congestion occurs, some measures would be taken. Hope this is clear. So based upon the feedback, some measures would be taken to overcome this uh, congestion. Right? So the very first the uh, approach what it uses is to monitor the system. It has to detect when and where the congestion has occurred, and based upon that it has to pass the information to the other routers so that it can take certain action at the congested part, and adjust system operation to correct the problem. Okay, and the parameters are adjusted so that it can overcome that congestion part. Is this thing clear, everyone? Hello. Okay, so we'll continue with this principles of congestion control in the next class. We'll stop here, and any doubts from any of the topics which has been covered today? Hierarchical routing, broadcast routing we have discussed, and different types of broadcasting, flooding, spanning tree, multi-destination, etc. Then multicast routing, and then congestion, some details about the congestion. So that we'll see as we go further. Okay. How to monitor the system means what? Say suppose if a router is there, and if a host is there, he has sent some 10 packets to the other end. But if it finds that no acknowledgement has been received, by looking at that, it can make a guess that some congestion might have occurred, and I have lost my I mean that the receiver may not have received the packets. So by in short, by using this feedback, by just observing, okay, the network uh, I mean, by observing the network, how it works, based upon that, it can make certain decisions. Right? Hope you are getting me. Preet. Okay. This is one such example. Now, even there are some uh, hello packets. You might have studied this hello packets, eco packets, etc. Okay, so these packets are they are specifically used to monitor the network. Okay, they may send some echo packet, and when it echoes back, when it receives that echo packet back, by looking at this by looking at this uh, uh, I mean this loop, this time when it sends and when it receives. So the time delay it will measure, and if it finds that it is too large, it implies that there is a heavy congestion. If it is too small, it implies that it is congestionless. Is this thing clear? This is one such example. There are number of ways which we will be studying. Fine. Okay. So we'll stop here and we'll continue in the next lecture. I repeat, in level 1, how